Howdy, y'all, and welcome back to Weathering Rainbows. Today we've got a very special guest with us. You've heard about her in a previous show. She was one of the first drag queens I ever got to experience at Connections nightclub back in the day. This is Vanessa DeMornay, also known as Mikhail Schultz, and I'm going to let him introduce himself to the world.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Mikhail, and I have been performing as Vanessa now for 17 years. Started right after I turned 18 and had no idea what drag was when I first saw my first show. So it was a whole new world opened up, and she has opened up all kinds of worlds for me. So I've had a really awesome career and just really glad to be here and share a little bit of it with you.
Was your first drag show Connections?
No, so I was living in St. Louis. There's a long backstory to how I got to a certain point in my life, but I'm supposed to go to college, and things fell apart with my family and my living situation. And so that just wasn't the right time to go into college. So I was literally living on someone's couch, just about to turn 18 years old, a couple duffel bags of clothes, and that's where I was at in life. I didn't know what I was gonna do. So I had met some gay friends, and they took me to a little club in Carbondale, Illinois, called Boxers and Briefs. It was a male strip club in the middle of nowhere. Like, you got scared driving out there, and walked in to this stereotypical strip club, right? Like red lighting, mirrors, poles, the whole gig. And they were having amateur drag night. And we walk in, and this tragic queen was doing Britney Spears.
Was it Chris Crawford?
I think Chris did it a little better. I always had thought drag was more live performing, live singing. And I have a musical background, but my voice is a little deeper, so I thought it wouldn't be for me. So when I walked in and saw her dancing and lip syncing, I went, oh, I can do that. And I can do that really well. So I literally walked into the dressing room at the end of the show, not knowing anybody there, and said, I want to do this. What do I need to do? And they were very kind to me and told me to show up the next week with a wig. And they put me in drag and started me on that path.
Wow.
They were very kind to a little ballsy 18-year-old who had the nerve to do that. But and that's how it got started. And that was really my only source of income. I made, maybe between $15, $25 a week.
Oh, wow.
Enough to get some ramen noodles and save up for another wig or another costume. And I just worked my way, and had people that were letting me stay on their couch. So I was able to make my way from that to a full-time career out of it, traveling the world and doing a lot of amazing things. So
that's an illustrious career from the couch to National Entertainer of the Year. I mean, that's an unbelievable story. So how many titles do you have? And tell us a little bit about the year that you were National Entertainer of the Year.
Sure. How many? It's not, I haven't done as many contests as you might think. I choose what I want to do carefully. So I've actually probably named them on both hands. Like Miss Kentucky Newcomer was my first big title, and that was kind of the way that you made your way into the connection in world. When I moved to Louisville, I actually moved here to be a male lead in the show. Saw a poster on MySpace that they were hiring male backup dancers. So I packed up my car and drove down from Minneapolis and auditioned that same afternoon and got hired. And they had no idea that I actually had been doing drag for about 2 years at that point. So I moved in October. February was Miss Newcomer. I already had a gown tucked away, had talent I could do. So I just jumped in the pageant, but I didn't really tell anybody that I did drag and that, it was something I was interested in. So I just kind of showed up out of nowhere.
Just a little surprise.
And the girls were very upset about it because they had all been planning to win this for a very long time. And after they called me the winner, I went upstairs and they had wiped all my makeup off the counter. Everything I had was on the floor, broken everything.
Oh
gosh. It was an interesting way to get started, but that title allowed me Sunday night bookings, which led to a spot on cast there in drag. So that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. So that was an important title to me. And then Entertainer of the Year was the next system I started in. So I've been Miss Kentucky, EOY. I was the first Canada Entertainer of the Year. I don't know why I decided to drive up to Ontario and do that pageant, but yeah, it was actually really fun, and I got to go back and forth and do some fundraising and different shows up there. So it was cool to see a different side of drag in a different country.
Oh yeah,
it was very cool. I won National Entertainer of the Year after that. So for the next couple of years, I was traveling. I was kind of coming off of that. Then I decided, okay, let's go ahead and see what other pageant systems have to offer. So the next one I did, I was Miss Georgia, US of A. I placed top 10 that year. Nice system, didn't feel like it was a great fit for me, so I tried another one. I did All American Goddess. I did not win my qualifying to get into that, but I was in top 5 that first year. Went back 3 years later, did it again. So I got Miss Midwest All American Goddess, and I was top 5 again. So yeah, I've had a really good pageant career. Been really proud of everything I've done. And of course, Entertainer of the Year is a very special spot for me, because that is how I ended up here in Louisville.
Yeah, that's I think the year that you had won, that was the first year that I'd ever even started to come out to the bars and stuff. And I always remember, National Entertainer of the Year, and so I loved it. At Connections, you also do an incredible Pink impersonation, as well as Lady Gaga, and you even got to perform a little bit with Lady Gaga. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Sure, that's the story people really like to hear how this came about, and it was a pretty special night. So I was the reigning Entertainer of the Year, so I was in the office with the owner of the Connection one afternoon talking some business. He got a phone call and was kind of dismissive in this phone call. I was like, no, thank you, okay, and hung up. And he mentioned that it was someone from Gaga's team, and they were seeing if they were interested in having her perform when she came in town. And clearly he was like, I don't know. I guess it was going to be like $20,000 to have her perform. So he's like, yeah, no, we'll pass. So I put that out of my mind. But she was coming in town. It was just a couple weeks later she came in town for her concert. And Ed let us go to the concert, but we had to go already dressed and ready for the show. And we ran from the Young Center through the alleyways, highways, and byways back to the Connection in 8-inch stripper heels and started the show. So here it is Saturday night, starting the second show. I'm in the opening production number, and we do our opening number, and we're going up the stairs to the dressing room. And the girl coming down was like, get ready. And I went around the corner, and there she was, like, standing in the middle of the room with like this circle of people around. And it was very that face right there, like because again, I had put that out of my mind. So I really didn't expect that. So to see her there was, a crazy moment. She's tiny. Oh my gosh, she's so tiny. And she was wearing like 8-inch heels, and she's still tiny. Well, I was also wearing 8-inch heels, so I guess that's not fair. But she was just so wonderful and just wanted to hang out in the dressing area. Of course, they couldn't really let her go out in the crowd. That would have been a mayhem. So she just hung out upstairs with the girls and wanted to see our dressing rooms, tried to steal a coat of mine. She was just so down to earth, I think is what I loved about her was she remembered everyone's name she was introduced to. She was just very present and very grateful for everything that she had going on around her. And really humble. So the show's going on, and I'm like, okay, I have to go get ready for my next number. I'm doing Born This Way. So I'm in my dressing room, which were private. I have the door closed, and I'm trying to gather myself. And I get dressed, and I looked in the mirror and thought, you will regret it the rest of your life if you don't at least ask her. So go down the hallway. Now, first I had to go ask my boss, because I wasn't going to be charged $20,000 if they charged the club, and he tried to put that on me. So I got permission from him first. And he said, good luck, you can ask her. So I just went over, she was sitting on a couch, and I crouched down. I was like, I'm going to go do Born This Way. I was just wondering if you may want to come out on stage with me. And she went, well, that's my song. Where's the microphone? Just like that. She'd just gotten done, a 3-hour concert she'd just finished. And she was that willing and happy to do that. She goes, how do you want to do this? So I went out first, and then she wandered on out, and
Wow.
it was a wild moment for me. Of
That's
course, the first thought I
amazing.
had is, well, what do I do now? Like,
Right.
let it sink in the back.
Smile and wave.
But she was so great, so collaborative, and just she was wonderful. So it's a memory I will always have, and I still have her wine glass that she was drinking out of.
Oh.
Yes, like a true super fan, I ran down that hallway and smashed that glass.
You are not our only super fan of Lady Gaga. That's out of everybody we've asked, I think her name is like 90% of people in terms of their gay influence. Like,
Sure.
I remember being so upset that night because obviously she went to Connections, and we had gone to the show, and I wanted to go to Connections, but my boyfriend and I were going down to Panama to celebrate spring break because it was right before spring break. And so we're on the road, and I look at my phone and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
$10 concert.
I was like, man. So yeah, I remember being upset. I'm very envious of you getting to perform with Lady Gaga, but
I would have never dreamed that I'd have a moment like that. So it was pretty wild. It was pretty crazy to wake up the next morning to my phone ringing over and over. I finally get it, and it's at TV, and they want to do an interview.
wow.
It's like 5 in the morning. After 2 hours of sleep.
Wow.
So I just download Skype really quick and get this set. It's 2010. Technology and me were not friends then. So I'm like just trying to figure this out, right? And did an interview with them and got online later in the morning, and it was front page of Perez Hilton, TMZ, AOL News, just all these publications. And of course, most of them were putting this spin on it, like Lady Gaga in Kentucky with a drag queen. Like I wasn't going to have any teeth and play a banjo or something.
Right.
You know, it felt like they were trying to kind of make a joke of it, but you really couldn't. It was just such a cool moment. So
That's awesome. That's an amazing story. One of the things you brought up, Lady Gaga trying to steal your coat. You brought up that all your makeup and stuff was wiped off the table after a Kentucky newcomer. How vicious is drag world?
it can go there. It can go there. Yeah. Not as bad as I think it was back in the day, in the old school days. I've heard stories of bleach being poured on things,
Oh my goodness.
ground up glass and powder. Yeah, I think they used to be a little crazier back then. Now people have more locks and cameras and things to take care of their stuff. But I've been pretty lucky. I've not had too much besides those incidences. Not had too much else happen, but
So you've never been sabotaged at a pageant or anything?
not at a pageant. But I also have big Tupperware that I drill holes and have locks in, so they're not messing with my stuff.
There you go.
I also bring someone with me to watch my stuff.
How is that in terms of, obviously in pageants it takes a team, you got to have a full team.
A whole village.
Tell us a little bit about that process and how you pick the team members and stuff that go with you on these events.
Sure, it depends on what event you're doing. Some are going to have multiple days of competing, multiple categories. The larger national pageants, I usually do 2 evening gowns, 2 talents. So it can get pretty extravagant with some of these productions. So I guess you start with what your goal is and break it down to how you're going to get there. My drag mom taught me to be very systematic about it and approach it as business. So that's how my mind approaches it. Then you get to take a little time to have some creative brainstorming, because when you think of an evening gown, I like to design mine. I like things to be, from my aesthetic. I don't make my pageant gowns, but I definitely am very involved in the process. I do the embellishment work on it too, because I think you take more pride when you are wearing something that you've put that work into.
Yeah.
I think you wear it differently. So I'm very hands-on that way. So evening gown, yeah, you create a look. Talent is coming up with something that's going to be strong and show your abilities. Oddly enough, the talents that I have done, a lot of them I did not want to do originally. And my drag mom said, that's what you're doing. So some of them were like production numbers we were learning at the Connection that the other girls were having a hard time with the choreography. So they're like, hey, Vanessa, that's your new talent. And we took it, like pushed it and really, added a lot to it. So they turned out great. So I'm glad that they pushed me down those roads. But other times, for instance, I'll tell you about my favorite talent that I've done was winning National Entertainer of the Year. I wanted to do something that I hadn't seen anyone do before, and something that involved talents of mine that were things that I had done growing up. All the pieces of me. And I wanted to show people that. So the first year I competed, I did EOI twice. The first year I lost my 6 points. I was shocked to do that well.
Yeah,
and for talent, that was the year that I did aerial acrobatics for talent. Always grew up doing dance and gymnastics, so I'd always wanted to try that. I always wanted to be in the circus. So I had a friend who was dating an aerialist, so I flew to Boston and for 5 days trained with him to learn enough vocabulary of movement that we could put a number together. So we put together this 3.5 minute number, and I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. I think it was my husband and my drag mom, maybe 1 or 2 extremely close friends that needed to know. I kept that under wraps. I don't know how we kept that a secret, but we did it at the Palace Theater. The curtains open, and I'm sitting in a rope at the top of the stage, and the crowd just erupts.
Well, yeah.
So you're like, okay, I'm onto something here. There were some rough moments. It wasn't perfect, but I did it. It was a moment of pride for me. So 6 points away from the crown. What do you got to do next year? So that's when I was like, okay, add the other things that are what make you you. So I came up with this number. Pink had done Glitter in the Air at the Grammys during that year. And that really inspired me watching her. So I wanted to kind of recreate it, but with my own additions to it.
Right.
So I started by playing a grand piano and breaking down Glitter in the Air to play on the piano. A lot of people didn't know that I've played since I was 4. I come from a really musical family. So we wanted to showcase that a little bit. And did more of the aerial movement, a better costume. Things went really smoothly, and was able to win talent that night. One thing people don't know about what happened that night, there was actually a backstage disaster. So everything was done on a computer system. So the rope that I had would go up and down. We had it pre-programmed, pre-timed to the music. They just hit start and it would go. And I knew when to be in it and how to make this happen. It just made life so easy. The fuse that was connected to that in the theater blew right before my number. So I'm on stage, just humming to myself, getting ready to do this. And I have no idea that they're all running around backstage trying to figure out what to do. You only get 5 minutes setup time, by the way. So,
oh my goodness.
The hostess is out front trying to stall without making it look like they're stalling for a contestant. Because in all fairness, it was a technical issue that was the theater's problem, not my problem. So I was within my guideline, but of course you can't just be telling a crowd what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So they're running around. They found a new computer board to put in, but it had to be done manually.
Wow.
So who was going to control the rope? A friend of mine was basically my manager, was a theater director, so he helped me put everything together, and he was my second set of hands and eyes. But he lived in New York City, so he and I had not done the number together for about a month, and he had flown in that day to be there for that night, and so we just winged it. We just, if you watch the video, there's moments I look at the side of the stage and nod at him because, we had to figure out how we were going to do this. It could have really fallen apart, and I really could have gotten injured. There was no safety line, no mat. That was about 40, 50 feet in the air.
They wouldn't even allow that today.
There's no way they would.
Yeah.
And in 5-inch heels. And I watch that video now and think, you were crazy. I'm scared of heights now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even get on a ladder without feeling anxious now.
Oh my goodness.
But I think I take so much more pride in getting through that, and nobody knowing that was what I was dealing with emotionally and mentally going into this difficult number. It added a whole level too after being called the winner. Later that night, the next day, and the following days, because people didn't know what happened, they were saying that it was unfair, that it was rigged for me because I had broken rules and gone over time limits.
Yeah.
And I was a local girl. They thought that I had all this privilege, and I know how it looks to them. So I'm not going to sit and argue with anybody. But how do you navigate that?
And they would have done it for anyone. It wouldn't just
Because
because it's you.
It was a safety issue.
Yeah,
truly.
It's an important thing to do. So,
But it was tough because the owners told me, go travel the country and don't talk about it. So I did not tell anybody what happened. I think it was the last 2 or 3 years I've started telling people what really happened. Now it's 10 years later, I can start telling the story.
That's awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about your background. Obviously, I know you're from a rural area, and that's our viewers and listeners are kids that are in rural areas that are identified as LGBTQ+. They're either coming out or coming to terms with it, and then even those that are on up into college years. Obviously, we all had various experiences in our coming out process and growing up in rural areas, and I always like to allow our guests to kind of share their experience.
Sure. So I grew up in the middle of Missouri in a town called Columbia. It was a decent-sized small town, if you will. Had a college there, so there was some culture and something going on there. And I lived in a neighborhood that was, for a white Christian, it was very idyllic. Everybody went to the church and the school at the end of the street. Everyone knew each other. We had one black family, one Mexican family, and one Japanese family. And nobody locked their doors at night. And it was a blessing to grow up in a quiet, safe place like that.
Right.
You know? So my family is religious, and has always raised us that way, which I am grateful for. I think it gave me a great set of morals and a great direction. Interesting with my family, though, as I was growing up, because I didn't know that gay was an option. Never saw any representation of it. Certainly never met anybody.
I never even heard the phrase.
Honestly, I don't think I did, but I have memories now of funny things like playing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers with the neighborhood kids, and I always wanted to be Kimberly the Pink Ranger. And in my later years, I wondered, was that questioning my gender identity? And when I really soul searched, I'm like, no, it's because I wanted to be with Tommy the Green Ranger. He was really cute.
Yeah.
So I had those desires and that attraction at a young age. So clearly it's not something that's a learned behavior, if that is instinctual. So I remember I think I was 11. A girl from church youth group took me to Borders bookstore, and she knew I was gay as a picnic basket. So she took me to Borders, which had the gay and lesbian section. And I just remember being like, this is the thing. And feeling angry at my parents. I felt like, what else are you hiding from me? Like, obviously this is who I am. And so I came out to them. I was 11, and they were not happy.
Wow.
I've always been a pretty headstrong kid. So it caused a lot of tension in my family. And my siblings are all very well behaved and great kids for my parents. I was the troubled child.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of tension, a lot of fighting.
11 years old, you had the bravery to come out to your parents who were religious, and that's, to me, mind-blowing. It shows how strong you are, first off, but how did you gain that courage as an 11-year-old kid? Like, what was going through your mind of, you need to tell them this right now?
I think there was a sense of freedom in finding that identity. I find it really funny that my parents ever had a problem with it, considering they raised me in ballet class, music, figure skating. I was basically groomed to be gay. Certainly groomed to be a drag queen. I did all the girls' hair for prom, and I did all these gay things. It was just what I loved, and my parents supported the arts very much. So it was odd to me that they supported parts of me, but didn't want me to be involved in the lifestyle. I remember I have memories that, of course, my mom denies this, but I wanted to do modeling. I was fascinated by modeling and loved to walk. So I was like, well, I want to go into modeling. And not that, this is the mid 90s and male models weren't really a thing, right? So I remember my mom telling me, oh, you'll never be a model. You've got bad skin and bad teeth, so you just would never make it. And that stuck with me for many, many, many years. That was really brought up a lot of insecurities for me that I had to work through. And she tells me now, I told you that because that was an industry that was full of gay men. And I was really scared that you always looked older than you were. You were always very mature and eloquent, and I didn't want anyone taking advantage of you. So I get it now, but they really tried to keep the gayness down, and they wanted to keep me safe. But
I think that's something for our listeners to kind of understand is a lot of times, because I mean, even with my mother, she was supportive when I came out, but the things that your parents say a lot of times, they're with good intention, but they come across incredibly harmful to you.
sure.
And a lot of it is your parents do have an underlying fear of what you're going to face as a gay male coming out into the world, so.
Well, in that time period, there were no gay role models. There were no, out and proud positive examples of a gay lifestyle. So, we had just come out of the 80s, the AIDS epidemic. There were a lot of things to be scared of.
Right.
And my parents, all that they knew was stereotypes and rumors and how people talked about gay people. In their little religious world, I don't even know if they knew anyone.
Throughout boarding school, I know you mentioned that they used some conversion therapy tactics. What was that process like? Was it an all male school, I'm assuming, and then?
It wasn't actually. It was a mixed school, but it was a housing structure. So it would be about 10 boys to a house. So there were 2 girls' houses and 3 boys' houses. Specifically in the Dominican Republic, that's the school I spent the longest amount of time in. And then the school in Indiana was similar in how it was set up. Indiana, Canada, and the DR were all part of the same system. And so you could transfer within those. So that's how I ended up in all 3 of those. So it was set up. You had a house father and mother. You had a school teacher, a counselor, and a group leader. And it was family set up to teach you how to have a healthy family relationship.
Wow.
It was a bunch of crap is what it was. It was militaristic in the way they ran things. It was just exercise for discipline. Discipline that was totally unnecessary, just teach lessons. So I didn't really realize the conversion therapy tactics that were happening a lot of the time.
Right.
It wasn't actually the last podcast that I did was with Tanner Mulgrew for band conversion therapy. We did one on that topic, and they knew a little bit of my story. So as we started that show, they asked, Tanner, can you tell us about conversion therapy? And he's listing all these ways that it can happen. And I'm sitting there like, holy crap,
things happen. Yeah.
I went through a lot of those, brainwashing, manual labor, humiliation. There was a lot of things designed to break you. I just remember thinking the whole time, this is clearly working.
Right. Do you find yourself still dealing with some of those tactics today? In terms of, do they still haunt?
Residual baggage? Absolutely. I've actually just started working with a therapist. I put that experience into little boxes in the back of my mind for most of my 20s, well into my 30s now. And it definitely has impacted my life. So now I'm pulling those out and attempting to sort through them. it's good to do and it's hard. More than anything, though, I am reminded that I am made exactly the way that I'm supposed to be. And you can try to change someone, but God made me the way that I am. And he had a design for it. And the whole path that I went on, there's a whole reason that I went through these things. So
I always like the phrase "perfectly imperfect." You know, that's how I feel all the time. It's
absolutely
you're meant to be the way that you are. You know. I know you said you were married.
Yeah, I was with my partner for 10 years. At that time, gay marriage was only legal in Vermont, and it never made sense to us to run to Vermont to get a piece of paper. So we just had, our rings exchanged, and for all intents and purposes, and certainly by the law, we were married after 10 years.
So one thing I come across with several drag queens that we've talked to is they feel the need to like hide that part of themselves from people that they date and are in relationships with.
Sure.
What was that process for you?
Fortunately, I met my partner through Entertainer of the Year. I've just touched on this. So I was living in Minneapolis when I first came to Kentucky as a backup dancer for someone competing for EOI. I think it was 2005. And came to Kentucky, and I'm like, oh, this isn't too bad. I mean, they wear shoes. Like, there's not angels playing. You know, it was better than I thought it was going to be. So we just kind of hung around downtown, though. And I was like, okay, there's culture here. There's things to do. This isn't bad at all. So the next year, they competed again, came back. We checked out the Highlands and different areas. And I was just impressed with Louisville overall. So the last night that we were in town, there's like the after party after the pageant at the Connection. And that's when I met with my partner, Wes. When we just met in passing and had a connection, exchanged numbers, and kept in touch for about 6 months. And I didn't have anything really holding me in Minneapolis, so I moved down here. And it was fortunate how it worked out. He just took a traveling job, so he was out of town 5 days a week. And I would watch the house and the dog. And then I'd work at the club on the weekends. So it was like we were living together, but not living together. We really got to know each other. I think that's why it worked out the way that it did. So he knew from the get-go that I was involved in drag in some way. And he was my biggest supporter. Absolutely. He was my right hand, and he still is. He is the backstage coordinator for Entertainer of the Year. He started doing that when I started competing. And did it initially to be there with me and to help in any way he could. And now it's turned into him running the backstage, and I host the pageant now. So we still work together. And he's still one of my best friends. So going back to hiding parts of it though, because now as a single dame out there trying to navigate this dating world these days, it's incredibly tough. Dating is tough in general these days. I'm really struggling to understand how to date right now. So yes, I've gone back and forth. There are times where you just want to be loud and proud in who you are, and I have to acknowledge the fact that a lot of people in this town know who I am. That pseudo-celebrity thing is a tough thing to deal with too, because sometimes you just want to be a person and let someone get to know the man behind it.
Right.
And sometimes they want to treat you like a drunk 23-year-old drag queen they met way back then, and they don't let you grow up. They don't let you be anything else. Or they want to pretend they're your friend, but couldn't tell you my real name. So it's hard, when I go out in town to have to kind of feign relationships with people or be on at all times because you want to be what people want. So when it comes to dating, it's hard to figure it out. I've tried all kinds of tactics, and I think it always does work best when you're just open. But that's usually one of the things I am most nervous to have a conversation about, to be honest with you. If I've met someone, I started trying to date a lot of people from out of town or that had just moved here. I found that worked a lot better for me because they had no preconceived notions. but it always was one of the hardest things to do, is to say, I do female impersonation, because you have no idea. There's a range of response to that. Oh, I've had everything from, to this day, I still will get blocked, on different apps, or when people realize who I am, it's just automatic shutdown.
It's almost like a second coming out, like it's that nervousness of, this is what I do,
Yeah,
so,
for sure. I think I had to come to a point where I had to be honest and understand where some of the difficulty for a guy hearing that news, because drag is a tough world. And I've never dated another drag queen because I wouldn't want to put up with their shit and everything that goes on, and how difficult. And I think a lot of guys think, oh my God, am I going to be looped into like carrying her bags and being Mr. Vanessa DeMornay? Like, that's a lot of pressure. And if they don't want to be in the spotlight, going out to a club with me when everybody says hi, it can be overwhelming. So I understand where a lot of that comes from.
Have you ever had the reverse? So, like, have you ever had somebody who, I don't know, I'm going to coin the phrase drag chasers, or like somebody who...
Oh yeah, I dated two of them back to back.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they were sneaky. I'd come home, they'd be in my makeup. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
But, I was out of a 10-year relationship and trying to figure it out. I just turned 30, and it was like a whole new world of opportunity. So, of course, when you get attention from someone that is like totally cool with drag and wants to be there at your shows and wants to be involved, it took a while for the truth to come out. But yeah, they wanted to be involved a little more.
Wow. There's all types. So one of the segments we do on this show is called the Heap of Trouble segment. It's where we give you an opportunity to tell us a story from your past, either about gay culture or some experience you've had since you've come out as gay. So,
okay, so the story that I think will fit, this is a very broad category you're giving me,
right.
But I think the story that will fit was introducing TSA to some details of drag that they probably didn't know before.
Oh, goodness.
So, going through an airport, and my checked bag was like half a pound over. So I'm like, all right, put something in your carry-on. And so I grabbed my breast forms because they have little weights in them. So it had a little weight to it. I'm like, well, that's probably half a pound right there. Cool. Tossed them in my bag. Yeah, the guy at security going through pulls them out. And he's like, sir, what are these? So they've got me on the side asking what these are. And I was like, well, I'm an actor and I sometimes do female roles. And so those are my breast forms. He said, well, what are these in here? I was like, well, those pellets are to weigh it to give it, natural weight. You have to demonstrate when you do it. And at that point, I was told that if I was a terrorist, this would be shrapnel to inflict maximum damage on an airplane. And they may not allow me to go through with my breasts.
Wow. That's great. So,
I taught them something about actors and drag, and they taught me about exploding terrorists. Which maybe Al Qaeda should have caught on to that.
I was gonna say that's now I'm gonna be scared every time I see a drag person going through the airport.
Right.
Like that's I'm just joking for the record. So that's an awesome story. That's perfect for a really perfect example of that type of story. So if we got any kids out there that are going to do drag, remember you need to put that stuff in your...
Don't take your titties on the plane.
That's the title of this show. Don't take your titties on the plane. Oh, goodness. So we also do a segment called the Do's and Don'ts segment. It's where you can give us any do's and don'ts on any topic of your choice.
So first thing that comes to mind for me is how my drag mom taught me to approach drag. And that's...
Who was your drag mom?
Terry Vanessa Colby.
Okay.
Absolutely. From the moment I met her, we clicked, because her legal name is Vanessa now. So we had all these crazy connections. Our birthdays are 2 days apart. She's a refined white woman, so clearly she's my mother. She's been an amazing force in my life, and very grateful for her. So she taught me so much across the board. I already had a good idea of who I was, but she groomed it, and she taught me to understand what a brand is, the business side of drag, and how to conduct yourself. She taught me so many things. So I think that's where I would pull my do's and don'ts from. I would say, do pay your taxes. Something a lot of performers don't really consider and can get you in a whole lot of trouble. So pay your taxes, or at least be smart. Pay someone to take care of it for you. I have a wonderful woman, Miss Janet Jones at HR Block, and we have a great system for how I write everything off. But it's important to take care of those things because you don't want that biting you years later. And especially things like winning Entertainer of the Year came with a $10,000 cash prize. Yeah. And how to deal with large amounts of finances like that. You know, you want to pay attention to how you're taking care of things legally and take care of business that way. So say do pay your taxes. Do always follow your gut. I think that is what I've learned the most in the last couple of years is that gut reaction is there. It could come from a variety of places, but whatever it is guiding you for a reason, and your body will have physical reactions to things, so listen to that. There's just been moments like people have suggested ideas that on paper would be perfect for me, but something didn't feel right, and then later on found out a reason that wasn't the fitting thing for me. So that's just something I've become really attuned with lately. I would say don't be afraid to continue exploring. You know, when I moved here, I had black hair and I was extremely tan. They thought I was a mixed girl when I moved here. I had a lot of rhythm and I had, you know, the coloring. I looked very different. Terry held me down in a sink and bleached me blonde. And I didn't ever want to be blonde, but she saw this brand that I could have. And once I was blonde, I saw it too. I was this living Barbie doll. And so that's very much what I crafted my image after, you know, this curvy, feminine, blonde Barbie doll. And that became Vanessa. And I think it can be easy to get stuck in a rut that way. And one day you look at your wardrobe like it's all pink. So I started exploring again and going back to things that I enjoyed, you know, earlier on in life, music that I hadn't listened to for a long time. And now I pull those things out and I incorporate them. And I think that's what keeps me fresh now. I think it's what keeps me relevant. 17 years in this business. I'm still working all the time. Yeah.
I saw Snapchat or something where you were, I think, at a horse show or something. Was that?
That was on my birthday a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I don't know how I find myself signed up for some of these gigs, but yeah, it was hosting and performing at a soiree fundraising dinner for the American Saddlebred Society after the World Championship Horse Show. I had no idea what I was walking into for that, but it was a blast. So yeah, random things like that, or reading to the kids at the public library. All these great opportunities, but I think a lot of that comes from pushing myself to explore different things. And seeing the different facets. The way I see Vanessa is she's a diamond and has all these facets, and I can turn it any way I want and show you different sides of myself. And I think that's what people should do more of, is you don't have to be stuck being one person, one flavor. You can be a lot of things mixed into one. So don't be afraid to continue exploring and evolving. Yeah. Don't be afraid to travel. Travel's good for the soul. I think you can learn so much from seeing the world around you. And I think that taught me a lot about drag too, was to see how it is in different places, how people approach it differently. Or in my career as a hairdresser, whenever I travel somewhere, I go to an upscale salon so I can see what other people are doing, and I incorporate that into my business, and it helps better me. But you have to be involved in the world around you. So that's something I'm very passionate about.
Vanessa Coleman, is she still performing?
She's not performing anymore. She lives up in Connecticut. She's had her gender confirmation surgery, so she is living as the woman she was always meant to be. Is very, very happy now.
That's great.
Yeah, so she's doing well, but you might be able to get her out and do a show, maybe once a year, for special things. But yeah, that chapter of her life is kind of past. However, she's interested in possibly doing one more pageant.
Oh,
one more.
Okay.
And she's got one more in her. She's been a national title holder before, and got me everything about how to approach that. So she knows what she's doing, and she is an incredibly talented, incredibly smart woman, incredibly beautiful. She's got everything she needs. So I keep pushing her to do it, and we will see if that ever comes to fruition.
She holds a special place in my heart because first drag queen I've ever tipped. So, you always remember that experience.
Well, and tipping Terry is an experience.
It really is.
You have to picture 6'2", glamazon, smelling of tequila, and she's surprisingly strong, right?
Yeah.
Like,
when
when she takes $1, like there's a lot of force there.
I just always loved when she'd get on stage and she'd be like,
Oh, she got to get the crowd involved.
Got to.
That was her thing. Or getting them to clap, the faces she would make. Oh my gosh. But that was Terry. That's what everyone loved about her. Now, did she ever take off your shirt or whip you or sit on your face? Or
She did have the whips when I was there, but she didn't ever take off my shirt. Now, Hurricane did, but that's to be expected from her.
No surprise.
I would always remember Terry Vanessa Coleman after the show because there was Jimmy John's right there, and she would always come in Jimmy John's, and we would be like, "Oh, we just saw you," So that's the one thing I miss. Like, play needs a Jimmy John's right beside it.
God, that was the best thing ever.
It stays open 24 hours.
There was one night I had hung out in the club till well after 4, and I think did Jimmy John's stay open until 5, maybe.
Yeah.
So I was hanging out at the club till after 5 then, because I came stumbling out of there, and everyone was gone, and the store was closed. My drunk ass wanders over there. I was like, I'm just gonna try the door. They had left it unlocked.
Oh my goodness.
And I went in and took about 5 bags of chips and left some dollars on the ground. They never said anything about it.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
I had the good morals to leave some money. I was just so surprised. Like, really?
Just leaving the door open, yeah.
Cool.
Oh man.
Should have made a sandwich. Don't mind if I do.
Right. What is your most embarrassing story from performing? Like, have you ever had an embarrassing moment?
Oh yeah. Who has it?
Right.
Who has it? I don't think it's not the moment that happens to you. It's what you do at that moment that counts. Oh God.
Because I believe in RuPaul, there was one that just tripped and she turned it into a flip.
Oh,
and I was
totally.
like, that's
Yes,
awesome.
yes,
Yeah.
You make it work. If your wig is sliding off, go ahead and pull it off and work it into your number. Because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
These things happen. Embarrassing moments, though. Well, my very first number, my tit just fell out in the middle of it. Just and it was pantyhose and birdseed, so I had some weight to it. And I wanted some big knockers, right?
Right.
So that came creeping out. The cutout in this shirt, it just went thunk. And I just had to sit there and look at it for a second. That was my first number I did.
On that note, we're going to go ahead and enter into the pot of gold question, where it's an opportunity for you to ask me anything you'd like, and I get to ask you one final question to wrap up the show.
Having a religious background yourself, what was your biggest question to God when it came to wrestling? If you ever struggled with that,
My biggest question, because I struggled with it, and there was a lot of prayers and a lot of tears, but at the same time, I guess I always kind of knew that God accepted me for who I was. I mean, he, she, they made me, so I am here because of God. So I don't feel like I had a lot of questions in regards to my sexuality to God. Now, I think the question that constantly in my mind bothered me was how that gay people are the phrases in the Bible. about,
Sure.
gay people in the Bible and the phrases, abomination and all this kind of stuff. I always ask the question, why would you allow that to be placed in the Bible? And I think what we've learned over time, if you actually study the background of the Bible, how it was written, how all that came to be.
The world's biggest game of telephone.
Right. I mean, it's not, the lingo in it is not always the way it was intended. And I think that was what I struggled with the most by far was, how could God, who's all loving, put something that's so bad in the Bible?
Yeah, such hateful words.
So definitely. That was a deep question. I didn't expect that one today. So with that, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to be nice. And
don't go for it.
I want
a challenge.
I want to hear who, besides Terry Vanessa Coleman, you can't say her, who besides Terry Vanessa Coleman is your all-time favorite queen?
There are three. I would tie. I cannot decide between them. They are all incredible in their own ways. But hands down, these three are the trifecta for me. Would be Erica Andrews from Texas. She's a former EOI. She's a pageant queen that won everything. Roxy Andrews, drag mom. Just an incredible performer. And so funny. For someone that was so beautiful, she was hysterical. And that is what I loved about her, was she wasn't afraid to act a fool and make fun of herself. And she would make these little YouTube videos that were ridiculous. There was one of how she would pack a drag bag, and she's showing Roxy how to pack a suitcase for his show. She's got a giant pillowcase full of wigs, and she stuffs down. He gets in the suitcase. And you're looking at all this stuff in the suitcase like there's no way. And that bitch got everything, got that bag zipped up. Now, it took a couple minutes, and it took some maneuvering and sitting on the bag the right way, but I learned how to pack a suitcase. But she was just incredibly, beautiful.
Yeah, y'all never packed a suitcase like they did in Pose, did you?
No.
Seen Pose? None of those kind of packing suitcases, right?
No, none of that. No, but I just loved that she had so many different sides to her. And she was known to be this glamorous, beautiful trans woman. But then she'd come out for talent and do Superstar, like Sister Mary Catherine Gallagher. And she would, just be so funny. So I loved that. Mimi Marks is another one, the blonde bombshell from Chicago. She's originally from Iowa, a small town boy that grew into this amazingly beautiful trans woman. She just has something magnetic that I love, and got to spend some time with her a couple of years ago. They booked her at Play. She was good friends with Cezanne, who lived down the road from me. So I got to pick her up and take her to a show and kind of show her the town and have some time with her. They say don't meet your idols because they'll always let you down. Sometimes they don't, and sometimes you get to have a moment to pick someone's brain and get to know who they are behind the facade. And it was just really nice to see this human part of her. She's very kind. So the two of them, and then the third is Sasha Colby. If you are not familiar with Sasha Colby, go on YouTube and look her up. She is the moment. She's a trans performer now in LA, and just one of the most amazing performers, a dancer. She just has a unique style all to herself. So if you watch her and then watch videos of me, you will see the influence that she's had. But I think she taught me to not be afraid of yourself and what makes you unique. She moves in ways other girls don't move. And she has such a unique approach to performing a song that other people wouldn't think of. And she has, hands down, when she won Miss Continental several years ago, it's the best talent number ever. It's edgy, it's cool, it's Azealia Banks, and this cool mix of music that was very odd for Miss Continental. It's kind of not a conservative pageant, but it's very like Miss Universe. Mm-hmm. You're trying to just be this woman, right? And so a lot of girls do Broadway talents or these clean, elegant, feminine talents. No, this bitch came in and did this edgy, cool number that was very dark. And that's what I love about her, is because I have a lot of those same aesthetic influences. And she mixes it up and keeps it fresh, and is incredible to watch, but also a very, very amazing person off stage. She's had some struggles too. She had a drug addiction that she came through, and it's very inspiring that way. And we have a similar story with that. So she's always been really encouraging to me, and to have a role model like that, I think it's really good to have in your life.
Right.
I read 2 books. One was My Princess Boy, and one was Girls Can Do Everything in a Crown. And just wanted kids to feel encouraged to be themselves. And at the very end, they asked a similar thing, what would you want to say to the kids? And I hadn't pre-planned anything, but what came out is, it's not what you put on your body that matters, it's what's in your heart. But that really, I think, struck a chord with me, that is really the truth at the end of the day.
Yeah. Definitely a good way to end the show. Thank you for being on, and we really do appreciate having you here today.
It's my pleasure.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Don't forget to come on back now. I know we all love a little vibration, so if you are not already, go ahead and subscribe to this podcast. And we will surprise you on occasion with a new release vibration in your pocket. But in the meantime, if you find yourself alone or crossing new horizons along the Rainbow Trail, and you need a friend or even a laugh to get you through those dark and stormy nights, holler on out to us at www.weatheringrainbows.com, where you can find shelter in the blogs, videos, and other episodes that will hopefully keep you out of a whole heap of trouble. So until next time, y'all, giddy up, be true to yourself, and make the best of life. And wherever the wild tracks may lead you, may the rainbow always touch your shoulder.